Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. This house would adapt student loan mechanisms in Indonesia. The people in Indonesia have faced students that have lower access for higher education, where in result, students either not enroll or even drop out halfway due to financial burden. A lot of people are desperately in need for financial aid, and in most cases, they often rely on their only source of income from their families, or they would have to take loans from loan sharks, find scholarships that are very rare and hard to get in, and even sell their belongings such as cars, houses, and so on, to just go and study at a decent or good school that they got accepted into. However, the opportunity to receive a big sum of scholarship or donor is quite hard, especially from the government, because the process takes quite a long time and is quite hard, which includes equation and literacy tests. What does that really mean for us? It means that the only safe and probable way of having a source of income for students is to either have a scholarship or work as a student in jobs. We firmly oppose the proposal brought by the proposition because it would evidently bring more structural harm, especially for the vulnerable groups such as student communities, and ultimately worsen inequality rather than solve the problem we're discussing today. Our goal as opposition is to protect the students, especially vulnerable ones, from making the wrong decisions they might regret in the future, such as cycles of debt and econ insecurity. My first argument to this topic is, why does the proposal misdiagnose the problem? Why does the proposition misdiagnose the problem? The government assumes the core problem is lack of access, which isn't really true. They assume that the core problem of the topic is lack of access to future incomes, when in truth, the problem is a wide future full of economic insecurity. Because of all the problems they listed, such as high tuition fees, limited scholarships, lack of financial aid for middle-income families, and dropouts due to the shock from financial burdens that they got. From all of these problems, they listed that they have one common problem, where they are not just about paying tuition today, but about students' inability to sustain education over time and secure stable income afterwards. The solution from student loans only equal to delays of payment, changes of expenses to debt, puts burden on the future for the students. But it does not solve the problem we talked about today, such as high tuition fees, limited scholarships, lack of financial income, dropouts, and so on. They also mention students dropping out due to illness in the family, urgent financial needs, inability to afford basic resources, which I'm going to explain the first problem, illness in the family. This depends on the student themselves. If they are willing to work and save up money, they can save up, but they would also need to take out an expense for food, housing, dorms, and so on, and that means that they get a decrease in their expenses savings, where even students with loans will still drop out at the end. Because loans don't fix emergencies such as the things that I have listed already. They'll only drop out with more debt, including the family illness problems and school debt, urgent financial needs such as housings, food, groceries, and family problems, and so on. And sometimes people do actually need holidays so that they won't get stressed. This proves that the government mechanism evidently has flaws. Instead of solving financial burden, it transforms it into long-term debt, especially for the students who need help. My second argument for this topic is, why is the accessibility and benefit very overrated and misleading information? Hear my statement loud and clear. Access does not equal success. Even when students enter university, not all will have the drive to study hard and would want to get good grades and graduate with honors, which leads to not graduating and not getting any degrees and not getting any honors and not getting any internships where they're gonna want to work. And not all degrees lead to jobs. Not all jobs pay the amount of debt you have, and there are still more problems that we haven't really discussed more. This creates a situation where education becomes devalued or decreased, where they're supposed to be high in education, but it increases, and graduates face unemployment. Students carry debt without stable incomes on which they have to pay. The government claims more students equal more productivity and innovation for future countries. But in reality, it's sometimes all about the connections you have with someone and with people, which if a master's graduate cannot find jobs, it becomes unemployed education. And if at the end students are burdened with loans, they may avoid entrepreneurships due to financial risk. This proves that sometimes what the government shows can often create a generation of overqualified students and workers and innovators with no info on what their future is going to become and what it's going to look like. As the government said, they thrive to build a better country, but in reality, they haven't thought it through clearly as the pros and cons that I have showed and talked to you about. Therefore, we as the opposition team oppose on the topic where this house would adopt student loans mechanism in Indonesia, because not only would it cause financial burdens for the students in Indonesia, it would cause economic insecurity, it would cause students to get misleading info, and not as the government side has told you about. Because we're still in a third world country where sometimes solutions that comes from a first world or developed country may not exactly be the right place to use as in Indonesia. Thank you.